Hey, welcome to the Jay Hendricks Show. I am Jay Hendrick, and today is the day that I have one thing on my mind. One thing. It's called Skynet, man. Skynet. I never believed it would happen, but it's coming to us. I'm just kidding. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. Today is a day that I have something. I found this interesting article today in the Guardian. Before I get to that, it's all about immortality and everybody's fascination with living forever. But before I get to that, I want to talk about one of the scariest movies I ever saw when I was a kid. I mean, I was a youngster. I shouldn't have watched this show. I think it was rated R when I saw it, I think. I was about 12, 13. And my cousin, who lived with us at the time, had brought in a DVD. Actually, it wasn't a DVD. We didn't have DVDs back then. It was actually a VHS tape of Terminator, Arnold, for the first time. And what scared me more than just the brutality in the film was the idea that a robot could come back from the future and kill you. And what was even more fascinating about it was the fact that it was sent by computers. Computers in the future ruled the earth, right? Skynet. It painted a picture of a real bleak future. Well, as I read more and more and more about technology and where it's taking us, there's these warnings coming out from like Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, saying we've got to be careful with artificial intelligence. We are almost setting our own trap. Now, I don't necessarily believe that. I don't. I believe in something called providence, which controls the ebb and flow of our human history towards some great point. But it's very fascinating. It's fascinating that we're entering this tragic scenario, right? I mean, didn't Mary Shelley write about this a long time ago? It was a story that we find now famous. The story is called what? Frankenstein, right? See, a lot of people don't know this. Everybody thinks that Frankenstein is actually the monster. Frankenstein's not the monster. Frankenstein is actually the doctor. Dr. Frankenstein is his name, Victor Frankenstein in the story. And in the story, what's actually happening, back at that time, the writers were a little afraid, or they were afraid of the law of unintended consequences, I think is the best way to put it. And they were going in and actually writing against what they saw, a lot of industrialization, a lot of scientific experimentation, where it was leading us in a bad way at that time. Well, guess what? They were right. There are negative consequences to some things. But the truth is, what's interesting about this story is that Victor creates blinded by his own ambition, right? He wanted to be the first. He wanted to be able to do this. And blinded also by the desire to create his own immortality. See, if you can bring inanimated tissue, dead tissue back to life, then you can be immortal. You can continually renew yourself. You can continually make yourself better. So that's what they do. They go in and take dead tissue and they reanimate it, right? They bring it back to life. Well, what ends up happening, of course, I don't mean to have a spoiler. If you haven't read the book Frankenstein, you should have read it in 7th grade? So it's on you. But truthfully, what ends up happening is Victor ends up running from the monster, and the monster actually pursues him. See, he's being pursued. It's a law of unintended consequences. He's being pursued by something he himself created. I think there's a message in there that's very interesting that kind of carries on through the ages. And so here we are. So here's the article. It was in the Guardian. It's The Secret. It's titled The Secret to Living Forever. Tech company has revealed that it can bring you back to life after death. Now, before we talk about the scenario, I want to tell you about a friend I once knew. His name was Sid. Back half a decade or so, I was looking for work after going to grad school outside of my normal field. I normally work in IT. I've been working in IT for 20 plus years. And I took a hiatus to go to grad school and go to seminary. And that was not what I would call very good for an IT resume, but it was very good for me. And what ended up happening is when I ended up needing to go back in the workforce, because I have a family to support, it was hard to get people to believe in me. Well, enter this guy by the name of Sid. Sid was a very nice man. Sid, I only knew him for just a short time. I mean, he was was always very nice to me. And he wanted to put me in charge of this project. And he did something that's very abnormal. He hired me to help develop the project before the project actually started and before the project had been won. So basically, he was fronting the cost for this. And I've never forgotten that about Sid. And a few months after I got the job, I eventually got a full-time job with this company. That was contract, what Sid signed me up for. I called back there because, again, I'd only known him for a little period of time. And it turned out that he had died of throat cancer just within a few months. So I knew him for this short period of time. And I was surprised by that. And there's one reason. Do you want to know what the reason is? It's because Sid had a Facebook account. And I went back as soon as I heard the news, and I went back and looked at his Facebook account, and Sid, who had died months previous to this incident, had posted the day before. Now, how did that happen? Well, there's actually a trend where some families, in order to keep loved ones alive, are actually posting as that loved one to kind of keep the feeling, kind of keep holding on to a dearly departed. And I get it. I mean, there are people that I've lost that I love. And if I could go and talk to them today, there are times where I sit around and I go, man, I wish I could keep them. I wish I could talk to that person. I wish I could have advice from that person, mentors I've had and such. But the truth is, they're gone. And talking to Facebook is just a facsimile, right? That's just a facsimile of who the person was. So enter this. I'll tell you that story to tell you this one. This is a story. This is about a company by the name of Hume AI. This is again in the Guardian out of the UK. So they have a project by the name of Atom, not Adam, Atom and Eve. And this project is focused on creating artificial bodies where you could actually, bodies where you could actually go in and insert your life. What the company is actually working on is they're working on AIs that could run and interface with the human mind, right? And actually pull out and store your memories, right? And then when you die, when your body gives out, your memories are then uploaded and you continue to live forever. But you really don't. See, this brings several questions. The first question that I see is, what is a human being? Are we just a collection of memories, of stimulus and responses, of collected data, or are we something more? My personal belief is we're something much more. My personal belief is that we're created for a purpose, that we have something that we're here to do. I am the father. I'm a husband. I believe in providence, that while I appreciate science, I appreciate technology, I appreciate all the good things it gives me and brings me, I appreciate being a good steward of that and a good shepherd of that. But the truth is, I am more than just a collection of ones and zeros. I'm more than just an analog computer. I am a human being. I've had my life has been breathed in by the Creator. There's a connection to the divine in me, both in the fact that He created me and that I have a relationship with the divine. I'm more than this. So any facsimile of me, any attempt to just retain my memories after the Lord has taken me home, will be unsuccessful at capturing the person that is me. You see? It's a vain concept. It's a concept that will never work. The founder of this actually says that he is, he actually says, and this is my paraphrase, and we'll post the link, but the founder actually says that he's not afraid of death, but he's not 100% sure that he's going to die. Well, that's, of course, a good sales pitch. But the truth is, death is inevitable. It's the consequence of sin. It's the consequence of living in this mortal coil. It always happens. And I really appreciate his attempt, right? The courage that somebody has to go in and say, yeah, I'm going to try and figure this out. But it's unattainable. It just is. It just is. If you would, please, if you have a Bible nearby, please turn to Ecclesiastes. It's one of those hard books to find. If you just a little information about Ecclesiastes, the writer of Ecclesiastes, known as the preacher, was actually the son of David. That's King David. Everybody knows, most people know about King David. He was a pivotal figure in the life of ancient Israel. So his son, Solomon, God actually came to him and said, I will give you anything you want. You are the man who is after my own heart. David, who wrote a lot of the Psalms, who wrote many things, and was also a sinner. Obviously, he had his lover's husband killed, and that there's an interesting prospect there. That was David. Solomon was offered anything by God, and you know what Solomon chose? He didn't choose wealth, although he became very wealthy. He didn't choose a great army, even though he was very powerful. He actually served as king over a united kingdom in Israel. He actually chose wisdom. And God was pleased with this request, and God granted him, the Bible says, a double portion. That's my paraphrase. So when you read the book of Ecclesiastes, you're reading God's imparted wisdom upon a human being. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to take to heart. Another thing about wisdom is different. It's different than just knowledge. Wisdom is knowledge applied in a biblical context. That's what wisdom is. And so therefore it's worthy for our consumption. Please read Ecclesiastes 3, verse 9 and following. What gain has the worker from his toil? Basically, Solomon's saying, what are we working for? Everything is fleeting after the wind, he says. There's a time for everything. There's this order, but I can't really figure it out just by looking in observation. I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. Eternity in man's heart. See, I think that's where all these movements towards immortality, a vain attempt, are going, right? Even, we've already mentioned, right? Just like Sid, my friend, in his Facebook profile, even if we upload our intelligence, our memory, all those kind of things into our own facsimile of a human being, even if that human being resembles us, even if that robot resembles us in every way, shape, form, or fashion, it is still not us. Even if we could somehow transplant our brain, would it be us? I don't think so. I think we're more than the sum total of our parts. And that's what he's saying. The drive to do those things, the drive to be immortal, to live forever, that drive to be like God in that way. Only really one way to live forever. Truly live forever. There's only one way, and it's not any weird Skynet, Terminator, The Matrix, anything like that. It's actually a very simple way. But it's hard to believe, and so for some people to trust. It's been here for a long time, and it starts this way. It was in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life.